What I am concerned about is the general security architecture around the whole process, where there is intimidation, uncalled for intimidation, people trying to throw fears, but we're confronting that. We will be going to Zimbabwe to campaign in the country. Whatever it takes, I am going to be standing and campaigning in my country.
I want to confirm that we've managed to successfully file the nomination papers on behalf of our client, and thereafter we should just wait to hear from Xavier Kasukuwere himself as to the rollout plan for his campaign, but it should be kickstarted anytime soon.
Former Zanu PF political commissar Xavier Kasukuwere, who is currently in self-imposed exile, successfully filed his nomination paper as an independent presidential candidate as we head to August 23 general election. This move by Kasukuwere has actually triggered interest in this poll. The media has taken a keen interest in the Kasukuwere factor in the election. Now here on this, the Free Talk, we look inside Xavier Kasukuwere's campaign, Xavier Kasukuwere's impact, Xavier Kasukuwere's past and future. We get you the details. Now join me after this break on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom and Heart and Soul TV and Radio. Welcome back to this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, and me, your host as usual, Dara. Now we talk politics, people, and Zimbabwe ahead of the August 23 general election, and focus is on the presidential candidates. Now joining me in studio this evening to discuss and get inside the Kasukuwere campaign is the presidential spokesperson for the Kasukuwere campaign, Jacqueline Sunday, a lawyer, legal practitioner, and also the chief elections agent. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Blessed. Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Now, Jackie, let us just cut to the chase. Maybe let's start by you explaining to us what happened to passenger 3034 when he was allegedly supposed to come to Zimbabwe.
Okay, passenger 34 was due to arrive in Zimbabwe, but he had to postpone or delay his arrival, but he shall be coming in due course. This is for reasons purely privy to him and his security team, but I want to assure Zimbabweans that President Kasukuwere will be availing himself in the next coming days to hit the ground running, to start and kickstart his campaign and meet the electorate and meet his supporters and get people to vote for him come 23rd August 2023.
There's this thing about outstanding warrants of arrest against your president.
Let me clarify on the issue of the outstanding or so-called outstanding warrants of arrest. The charges upon those warrants emanate or upon which they were issued were quashed in the High Court. So there are no longer any charges in respect of those warrants of arrest which were issued by the lower court. So the charges having been quashed by a higher court, President Kasukuwere was refunded his bail deposit, and the High Court also ordered that his title deeds should be returned to him, which order the state has still not complied with. So if the charges have been quashed, then automatically it means the warrants are of no use or consequence, because the warrants are to ensure that he attends court and answers to charges. But as we speak, there are no charges. So his supporters and potential supporters should not worry about the warrants, the issue of the warrants being peddled by our Zanu PF counterparts, because this is just meant to discourage people so that they feel that this candidate, it will be useless to support him because he's got outstanding legal issues. As I've said before, President Kasukuwere has got no pending legal issues which can prevent him from running his campaign, and any threats whatsoever to arrest him are purely political malice and abusing the court, the justice system in order to disadvantage a political opponent.
I mean, you say that these warrants do not stand, but a whole permanent secretary, legal affairs, spoke about them and highlighted that there are two that are outstanding. Now, is this a lack of understanding of the law?
I think it is rather sad and unfortunate that the permanent secretary had to comment on such issues. If indeed there were any warrants which had been issued by the magistrate, we understand that under the Zimbabwean law, the judiciary is a separate and independent arm of government. They're not supposed to operate under the instruction of anyone. So indeed, if they were there, I do not think that it was the permanent secretary's place to be commenting on those, because it now seems like she's now descending into the arena, yet as a civil servant, she's just supposed to observe, because whichever candidate wins, as a civil servant, she's supposed to serve that person.
Does this shock you that public civil servants are dabbling into politics and supporting certain political party positions?
I would like to encourage the senior civil servants who are holding positions of influence in government to say that where we are heading as a nation, as our country grows and matures as a democracy, it requires them to know their place, because they are mandated by the Constitution to serve the people and to serve whichever government wins power. And as we are approaching elections, it is unfortunate if civil servants may seem to be taking sides.
But does it shock you? Does it shock you, having been in Zimbabwe for a long time?
No, it does not shock me, because it seems like this has been the case, or this has been the standard, that civil servants seem to align themselves to whatever party. But I'm saying, as we mature as a democracy, we need to have a change in behavior and observe constitutionalism and to abide by its tenets, which say that civil servants are not supposed to be aligned.
I noticed that some of the campaign material that has come through from your campaign side appear to have colors that resemble Zanu PF. Let's talk about that.
I think the colors that we have been using are colors which emanate from our beautiful flag, a flag which is supposed to resemble unity of purpose, productivity, and development. So those colors, I think you're referring to the greens, to the yellow, those are colors which we take from the flag. And I think every party is entitled to use them in whatever design that they so wish, as long as it doesn't infringe on the identity of any other party, of which I don't think we have done that.
But if you take a Zanu PF poster and put it there, and you take Kasukuwere's poster and put it there, you struggle to notice the difference. Is it because you still have roots embedded and you're appealing to Zanu PF?
I think we cannot run away from the fact that my principal, President Kasukuwere, has got deep and long-term roots or links with the ruling party, which is Zanu PF. However, in this particular campaign, let me stress out, he is running as an independent. So whatever links he may have had in the past with Zanu PF, at the moment, he is not riding on those, but he is standing as an independent candidate which means that he wants to embrace every Zimbabwean. You know, blessed Zimbabweans have been polarized along party lines for so long. And I think this informed the decision to appear and stand as an independent, because we do not want another fracture of Zimbabwean citizens fighting over this party or that party or this party. What he recognizes is that we are all Zimbabweans and we have to unite to develop the country as one people and to find common ground. And once again, we start labeling this one is from that party, that one is from that party, and start fighting vigorously and being polarized. We will not get anywhere as a nation. It's high time we unite and find a common ground in spite of our political differences. Find at least some common ground from which you can work and develop the nation of Zimbabwe and carry it forward.
But you talk about this aspect of Zimbabweans have been divided, polarized along party political lines for a very long time. And this is a history that your principal has been part of for a very long time and has been actively making sure that people are polarized. Where did he reach his Damascus moment?
Blessed, I'd like to say that, yes, in himself, in his interviews before, he's acknowledged that perhaps in the past he may have made some mistakes. And you must also appreciate that President Kasukuwere has never been president. He's always been acting under someone else. So when you're acting under someone else, the principle of subordination also entails that you run with the vision of whoever you're operating.
But you have to believe in that vision, don't you?
Indeed.
He believed in that polarizing effect. He believed in that divide and rule that Robert Mugabe had. Now, why is he a changed man?
Going forward, and perhaps in his own personal moments, perhaps he's best able to explain better what brought him to that. But we as his supporters and those who have urged him on, we've actually spoken and agreed as a team that what we want to see going forward is a united Zimbabwe. We don't want to be denigrating each other because we support different parties. So you'll see that as our campaign rolls out, forgetting whatever he's happened in the past or whatever he was involved with or he's accused to have been involved with in the past. Going forward, we want to be respectful towards one another, including our opponents, and we want to encourage Zimbabweans to unite. We do not want to have a plebiscite which is marred in violence, marred in blood, marred in deaths, because we are insulting each other or hating each other on the basis of you support Zanu PF. Why are you supporting Chamisa? We want to go to an election as the mature people who are able to conduct their business in an orderly manner without having condemnation from regional counterparts. We want to show an example of a Zimbabwe which can go to elections, argue on issues, argue on matters of development and policies, but not fight, not spill blood, not injure one another as we move towards the election.
Some have argued that this is just a hunger of getting into power and because during the coup they lost out on the cake and they want it back. And it's not about the people. What would you say?
Every leader has got his own path of growth, maturity and development and gaining new insights. And I believe that President Kasukuwere's absence from this country for the past period that he's been out of the country and the deliberations and the exchanges he's had with people, we've seen a man who is emerged, who is able to lead the people of Zimbabwe, who is able to steer the ship towards developmental issues, towards politics that is aimed at the well-being of the ordinary person. This is no longer the time to talk about personal aggrandizement. It is the time to talk about the least person amongst us and their well-being, socio-economic rights of people, the rights of people to clean water, the rights of people to a good road transport network which will help them access opportunities. So this is the politics we are advancing. Politics of development, politics of inclusivity. We do not want to be We do not want to be a people who will award opportunities to those who are known to us. We don't want to advance nepotism. We want everyone to be included, and we want all groups, all interest groups to be catered for. The disabled, women, the vulnerable in the rural areas, everyone should be able to benefit from the resources of the country, and this entails good management.
But Jackie, the things that you speak of right now are the things that Kasukuwere, holding a very powerful position in Zanu PF as a political commissar and holding positions in government in various ministries as a powerful minister of indigenization, minister of local government, he failed to deliver any of these things.
I would not agree with you, Blessed, to say that he failed to deliver. You rightfully referred to his portfolio as Minister of Indigenization. And during that period, you saw that there were community trusts which were registered, which were meant to ensure that companies operating in a certain area would, without fail, contribute to that community.
Those trusts were plundered through corruption. Over 40 million disappeared from that youth indigenization fund over his watch.
You are sensationalizing. I don't think there's any evidence to that effect. But what I know for certain is that those programs, they were a tool through which companies were able to give back to the societies and the communities through which they, within which they operate and function, which is something that we are not seeing now. What we are seeing now is a dog-eat-dog. Capitalism has been favored to a fault, which means that those who own the means of production can take all and not worry about the environment in which they are operating, and not worry about empowering the communities in which they are operating, and not worry about employing. So that is not sustainable. You need a triple bottom approach, which is what is being done elsewhere in the world. It's not all about how much profit you can make. It's also about how do you operate sustainably? How do you take care of the environment within which you're operating? And how do you give back to the communities within which you're functioning to enable continuity even of your own operations?
But as you say this, we have seen videos of how the minister then, political commissar then, lived a very lavish lifestyle. A house with 52 toilets.
A house with 52 toilets. Well, as regards his personal assets, is something that I would not be privy to. It's some of those questions which President I'd advise you reserve for the candidate himself. Is going to be around, and we're going to keep you posted and updated as to his schedule. He's going to be available to answer all those questions which may be of a personal nature. But speaking broadly on the mandate to seek to govern the country, what I'm here to say is that we are standing for development, we're standing for inclusivity, renewal, and reuniting our people to be a people who's focused on one principle, which is advancing the cause of the country. We are one country which is so polarized that we will not celebrate even the wins that we have. We want to be able to put our difference aside when it comes to issues that concern the nation.
Let's look at your take on corruption. What is your take on corruption if you are to be given the mandate?
I think there should be zero tolerance on corruption. We have ZAC, but we have not seen its effectiveness. We should not have a ZAC which focuses mainly on the small fish but disregards the big fish. We want accountability across all levels, especially when it comes to awarding of tenders and whether that work is carried out. We do not want government departments to award tenders to dodgy business people who then do not deliver but get away with public funds. There should be accountability, there should be transparency, there should be feedback on each and every stage of infrastructural projects that are funded by the taxpayers.
The current government says the same thing that you say, that they want zero tolerance to corruption. That ZAC now has teeth, you know. Do you believe that?
You see, Blessed, there is one thing about talk without action. You can say one thing but do the opposite. And like I have said, with ZAC for the past 5 years, has there been any meaningful exposure of any corrupt activities? Are we saying that there has been no corruption in our government departments? Because we have not seen anything being talked about. We've not seen anyone being prosecuted meaningfully. And lastly, we have not seen any convictions. There may be some people paraded for 1 or 2 days, but you hear that those people have been acquitted. So it means that they are not doing a good job. Theirs is a shoddy job. They need to expose the corrupt activities happening concerning, involving public funds, whether it is in infrastructural projects, whether it's in day-to-day expenses. Corruption should be rooted out.
As is presidential spokesperson, I want us to talk about issues that are blighting this country and something they are serious election issues, the economy. What is your principal's plan to change this economy to something that can sustain the lives of the people of Zimbabwe?
What we need in this country, in as far as the economy is concerned, with whoever the incumbent who comes into power, and in this instance, we are saying that come 23rd of August, President Kasukuwere will be the winner of this upcoming election. What we need is somebody who will who return the economy of the country to stability. We've heard so many policy inconsistencies over the past 5 years, which does not instill any confidence in those who hold capital, in the investors, be it local or foreign investors. People seek stability. How do you introduce stability? You introduce well thought out policies that consider the net effect of whatever changes or interventions you may seek to introduce. The net effect on business, the net effect on the ordinary citizen. And this is something which has not been done by the current government. They have totally neglected to think of how their policies are going to affect the ordinary person on the street, how their policies affect the decision making by business. Because business does not want to wake up tomorrow and there's a new policy. And yet they've entered into contracts based on last week's policy. We need well thought out, consistent policies which will inspire confidence in our own people to invest in business activities, so that we also inspire outside foreign direct investment to come in. We cannot just focus on the outside without looking at the inside.
And so what is your solution to the currency question?
I believe that Zimbabwe's own currency should be restored, and this should be done in a gradual manner, but with a firm resolution to see it through. We cannot continue relying on an outside currency.
You're seeking to remove Zanu PF from the presidency, because you are an independent president campaign.
Yes.
Why do you want to remove them from power?
Because we are saying that they have failed in the past 5 years. They have failed to take the country forward in the manner that every Zimbabwean who was there in November 2017 believed that these people could take the country forward. Instead, they've taken it backwards. They failed to look out for the socio-economic welfare of the citizens of Zimbabwe. They have failed to steer Zimbabwe in terms of infrastructure development. We are still lagging behind. And there were good opportunities which would have been taken advantage of. There were good low-hanging fruits which we missed. And as a result, the ordinary man is suffering. They also failed in the thrust of re-engagement. Blessed, if you want your people's welfare, if you want the country to develop, you cannot operate as a pariah state, which means there are basics which you need to meet in order for you to cultivate relationships with the foreign community, the global community. This will in turn encourage investment from other countries coming here. But you cannot do that if you continue to operate as if you are living in a vacuum. So Zimbabwe needs on some very, very good opportunities, some goodwill was quite available for us to engage with other countries, for us to re-establish relationships with other countries, and that opportunity was missed.
But you talk of November 2017 as a missed opportunity. Your principal was targeted on November 2017 coup. Why would you celebrate that when you pushed your principal out of office?
I did not celebrate that. It is not meant as a celebration, but I'm saying that November 2017, the message that was given by President Mnangagwa was that we are going to take this nation forward. And he removed the others. He removed President Kasukuwere from the picture, and the others were said to have been obstacles. But yet, in that moment, where the whole nation, I think most people were out there supporting and believing, they gave Mr. Mnangagwa the chance. They gave him the opportunity. They gave him the benefit of the doubt. And they said, perhaps he can carry us forward. But what we have seen 5 years later is that people are suffering even more. The promises that he made to the people of Zimbabwe, none were met. The salaries of civil servants are pathetic. The cost of living is so high. Access to health is pathetic. People are endangered by lack of adequate health facilities. There were so many low-hanging fruits that Mr. Mnangagwa could have attended to as a matter of urgency, since he had sold himself as the person who was able to solve the nation's problems. But we see that we are in worse problems than we were. And hence, the desire and the call by the people to bring back President Kasukuwere into the arena to lead the people and introduce or reintroduce policies that are meant to develop the nation of Zimbabwe and to improve the welfare of its people.
Who or what do you think could potentially be the biggest obstacle for Kasukuwere to catapult himself to the echelons of power as the driver of the executive?
I do not think I can mince my words or evade this question anyhow. Zanu PF is relying on state apparatus. Zanu PF is relying on state funding. So that could be the biggest obstacle. But otherwise, other than that, our messaging is very clear. We're going to be very consistent with whatever resources we have available to make sure that the message reaches the masses, that the message reaches the people of Zimbabwe on all corners of Zimbabwe, rural areas, urban areas, everyone. We want them to hear the message that President Kasukuwere is coming back to Zimbabwe to spearhead the development of Zimbabwe and to accelerate infrastructure development, economic development, so that Zimbabwe catches up with the rest of the region. Because what we see now is we're still backwards.
But how are you going to do this? Because I see that apart from yourself and Nyaradzi, in that campaign team, you're the only ones in Zimbabwe. Lloyd Msipa is in the UK. The chairperson of the presidential campaign, Walter Mzembe, is also a wanted person in Zimbabwe. How are you going to run this campaign?
There's also Bwanya.
Yes.
There's Bwanya. No, that is not the entire team. That is just the core team that was announced. The chairman will be announcing the rest of the teams in due course, but that's just the core team. We've got plenty of people who have come forward. We've got plenty of people who have been working on the ground, even leading up to the nomination. We've got people who are with us and supporting us and steering this thing. It's not a one-man band, and by no means is it centered around the few individuals whose names have been announced. There are so many people who have been working towards it nationwide.
But funny you mentioned Nyaradzi Midzi. Isn't he ardent Zanu PF support?
I wouldn't want to answer personal questions relating to Midzi, but as we speak, as of now, we are working towards campaigning, the presidential campaign, to usher President Xavier Kasukuwere into power come 23rd of August.
I was just going through social media, and this is something that you need to address, Jackie, because it's got different vibes. I saw him celebrating the Chipinge launch on his social media handle.
Now, like I said, I wouldn't answer for Mnyaradzi, and I haven't come across that one. Perhaps he will be the best person to answer to it.
But let me focus on you as well, because you have been defending President Emerson Mnangagwa's policies. You've been speaking on behalf of Zanu PF. Why have you jumped the abyss?
To be honest with you, I have not been consistently or blindly supporting the policies or the actions of Zanu PF. Some of even the Zanu PF supporters on social media would constantly attack me when I differ with whatever is being. For instance, when there was the case of the renewal of Justice Malaba's case, I was one of those people who spoke out loudly against that move. Whenever I felt like policies are not in favor of the people's interest or in favor of justice or democracy, I would constantly stand up and speak out. I have not been a blind supporter, but where he has done things that I felt like were deserving of support, I would applaud. But where overall I felt like the past few weeks with the policies introduced by Mthuli Ncube, I've been one of those vocal ones, but this is not the first time. If you look at my social media footprint, it will show you that I've been a very harsh critic of Zanu PF.
You've been supporting the patriotic bill in the past. You believed that the patriotic bill was something that should be implemented in Zimbabwe. And yet, as we speak, you talk about Zimbabwe should not be a pariah state.
Yes, Zimbabwe should not be a pariah state.
And the patriotic bill does not make it a pariah state.
But I also personally believe that as Zimbabweans, it cannot be our mandate to go and tarnish the image of the country in such a way that it damages the interest of the country. It discourages investors from coming. It discourages even tourists from coming. Some alarmist kind of sentiments being aired out. And remember, when we started the interview, I alluded to the fact that as Zimbabweans, we should stand for some common ground. There should be some behavior that we should be all able to castigate as Zimbabweans. There should be.
Give me an example. Give me an example of that behavior that has happened before.
I don't think I want to go into personal attacks on people, but I don't think it is right or appropriate for a citizen to go about and spread malicious or untruthful opinions or lies on international podiums.
I will help you. I will help you, Jackie. Where you say people, there has been talk that there is serious disrespect for human rights in Zimbabwe. That people have been beaten up for different with the ruling Zanu PF. And these are some of the reasons why the international community has responded in the way it has, right? And now, if you say that these issues have been malicious, are you denying that the Zanu PF or the Zanu PF-led government has been involved in matters that have actually disrespected and disregarded human rights in Zimbabwe?
So, if we were to take that position that perhaps all those things that you're saying are true, is it then appropriate for a Zimbabwean citizen to go to another government, a foreign government, United States of America, and say,
is it appropriate to do it?
Can you please sanction Zimbabwe? And then when those sanctions are imposed, they affect even Gogo, Nasekuru, Marugumaru, because we are unable to access certain privileges by virtue of those sanctions. Let me be frank with you, Blessed. Sanctions are not going to be a blessing for any government that may come in. And it is up to us Zimbabweans, no matter who is voted in on the 23rd of August, to call for the removal of sanctions. And I don't think it is appropriate for any citizen who loves their country to go out there and call for punitive measures to be imposed upon their own country.
Zanu PF through Zobo called for the imposition of sanctions on Zimbabwe before 1980 independence. Zobgo said they call upon to impose sanctions because these elections have been rigged in advance. And then it was perceived to be patriotic.
You know, when we talk about colonial rule and we talk about post-independence Zimbabwe, I think those are false equivalences. We can never, ever, ever equate the situation it was during apartheid, during colonial times, to equate them to whatever is happening now. I think it is sad and unfortunate when Zimbabweans...
So you can't equate Job Scala being detained, denied bail for over a year, and the same thing that happened to nationalists like Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who was detained without trial.
We cannot equate.
It's different because it's being done by different scheme.
We cannot equate Ian Smith. We cannot equate colonialism.
No, I'm asking for the actions. I'm asking for the actions.
Yes, we cannot equate those to whatever could be happening. That's why I said, as a people, we need to find common ground and a common area which we all agree to respect. And for me, I'd say, as a Zimbabwean who grew up, was born post-independent, privileged enough to be born post-independence, and never witnessed apartheid a day in my life. But I think that is one area where we need to agree as Zimbabweans.
So in Zimbabwe, we must sanction.
Can you let me finish that point? I want to
Okay.
finish it. I think as a Zimbabwean who was privileged enough to never have experienced apartheid, to never have lived under colonial rule, I think when I say it is time to call Zimbabweans to unite and converge over one principle that unites us as a people, I think that principle should be the concept of the liberation struggle and the concept of anti-apartheid. We can never ever seek to justify apartheid. We can never ever seek to equate the struggle that our mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters fought to usher Zimbabwe in and remove the Tag Rhodesia. We can never ever equate it to whatever struggles we may have now. And in the beginning of the interview, I said, as we mature as a democracy, I do appreciate that where we are coming from has been rocky. But if you compare Zimbabwe to other countries in the region, you'll see that theirs have been more or less the same journey. You look at Kenneth Kaunda, Kamuzu Banda. They were long-term presidents up to the disgruntlement of their people. But they are maturing as democracies, and we are walking that path as Zimbabweans. And we should be proud of our journey, because every country's got its history, including the United States of America, which is lauded by many. They've got their history of slavery. They've got their history where they've moved. Racism is still an alive issue, but they are moving and they are growing. But you won't hear their citizens going to other countries and say, racism is a problem here. Can you please sanction our country?
Don't we hear them?
Calling for sanctions from other countries, sanction America? We don't do
Are you therefore saying that as Zimbabwe, we must sanction those who speak out and leave out those who perpetrate the human rights abuses?
I never anyway said that. It is really up to every Zimbabwean to stand up for themselves, to stand up for each other where abuses are taking place, but to also appreciate and use the channels that we have available within ourselves. And even if all that fails internally, we can appeal to our brothers and sisters in the region to assist. But this should not be done in a way where you're saying you're calling for punitive measures to be imposed upon your country, and you know how far-reaching those punitive measures are. They do not affect the government only, and they do not affect the government of the day only. I remember Morgan Tsvangirai calling for the removal of these sanctions, but yet he'd been one of those people advocating for them. Perhaps he didn't realize then that what he was calling for is essentially tying Zimbabwe's hands and limiting the pace at which he can develop.
As a lawyer, Jackie-san, and as a politician now, you genuinely believe that the United States of America the European Union would impose sanctions on Zimbabwe because an opposition leader is called for sanctions?
Yes, they would. They get the submissions, they get the situation as perceived or as presented to them by those activists. And some of them can be exaggerated because, as you know, these sanctions are unilaterally imposed. They are unilaterally imposed. There is no way.
I'm asking this to say, do you think
The
that
people-
the governments
the people-
of the United States, the EU,
Yes,
they
indeed.
have no capacity whatsoever to verify? So if I wake up today and call on the United States to impose sanctions,
Can I
they would probably
can I
do
ask
that.
you? Can I flip this and back to you? Was the Zimbabwean government called? Was it a part of the decision making when those sanctions were imposed? Were they called to make any presentations?
Were they supposed to be called?
But did we not see our opposition folks going there to make presentations? So where you are calling for the principles of justice, what do we say about the right to be heard before action is taken against you? Negative action, punitive action is taken against you. Is it not a primary or a basic tenet of justice that at least you should be heard? You should have an opportunity.
Did you manage to read the WikiLeaks?
Did the government of Zimbabwe make presentations at the Senate? Just like BT did.
Jackie, did you or did you not manage to read the WikiLeaks? Did you or did you not see?
I'm not talking about the
Did you
WikiLeaks.
not? Did you or not? Did you or did you not
No,
see?
I'm not going to
that
talk about the
government ministers
WikiLeaks.
met with the United States of America.
Were those not
government official-
clandestine operations? Were they official operations? Because if you talk about WikiLeaks, we are talking about intelligence information, privileged information, people speaking in their personal capacities, not necessarily as government officials. I'm saying the government of Zimbabwe was never at any time ever called or asked. These are punitive measures which are imposed unilaterally by one person when they've heard the side of one or two individuals who suit their narrative. The government of Zimbabwe never ever officially sent any delegate to make presentations on sanctions. And these sanctions...
The government of Zimbabwe has paid lobbyists in America. They have gone before Senate. They have put their case. Are you not aware of that?
Lobbyists are not the same as government to government talks. And by the way, these sanctions that we are debating here are illegal. No single country is allowed to sanction another. It should be either United Nations or a multinational body. We can't have one country deciding to just interfere in the affairs of another country. It says that we are not equipped or we are not resourced enough or powerful enough to do that. But if all countries were to go around imposing sanctions on one another, what would that do to international relations? So it is because we are in a weaker position. And it's sad to see Zimbabweans celebrating sanctions from another country to your country. Which sanctions are limiting you of opportunities? Which sanctions are affecting even your quality of living? Yes, we have talked about the failures of Zanu PF, but we also need to acknowledge the negative effect that sanctions have had on our people.
In your view, do you think the behavior of beating up people for power, killing people in rural areas who had expressed a different opinion, should not be
so blessed? In the past 5 years, if you can just give me an example of people who have been killed for supporting a different, but we are full throttle in election season right now. Has that happened? Or now that's sensationalism? Because that's the same thing we are talking about. That one individual will fly to New York and say that people are being killed, people are dying.
Job Scala is in prison.
No, I didn't talk about Job Scala, because Job Scala and Jacob Ngalivume
at a rally in Kwekwe in March 26, a person was killed by Zanu PF supporters who were arrested by police, and nothing has happened to them.
So if
the by-election,
okay. I want you to be objective. I want you to be objective.
No, I don't need to be objective. I want you to answer questions.
Because when you say that this person is a Zanu PF person, How have you identified them yourself?
The police C-Trip identified them as Zanu PF, not me.
How do you identify a person as Zanu PF?
I don't know, but the police,
So,
the Zimbabwe Republic Police identified them as Zanu PF, and that's an official record of this government, not mine.
Did the accused persons themselves identify themselves as Zanu PF? Because you can't have someone else identifying someone else. Did they have identity documents saying that they are Zanu PF? And I not claiming to speak for Zanu PF people. But what I'm saying is that
as a lawyer, Jackie,
this is exactly
you would appreciate, as a lawyer, Jackie, you would appreciate that when you are arrested and the police are processing you, they will ask you questions, and everything that they write in that C-Trap, basically most of the time
as
come
a
from
lawyer,
that list.
I also appreciate that no one is guilty until proven.
Of course.
So if they were arrested and taken to courts, whether their cases are still pending, we appreciate that they were arrested. And going forward, I think I want to emphasize this point, that we should not be a sensational people, because this is what causes this polarization. Once people believe that people are being killed, someone will say, okay, let me be the one to kill first. That is the message.
But Bonani Ngube was killed.
When we push forward sensationalized messages like that, what it will do is to incite people. We do not want, blessed at this moment, to incite Zimbabweans to be violent towards one another. We appreciate our history. We appreciate the wrong things which may have happened in the past. But don't we want to grow going forward?
How do you grow when Bonani was killed at a rally, which I was actually covering with my team, and we have footage.
When was this rally?
On the 26th of March, 2022.
It's the one you are saying the police have arrested. So let's allow the justice system to take its course. But let's not use that one incident to generalize in a sensationalized manner. Because once we are saddened by any loss of life, let me just emphasize this: that going forward, we as the campaign team for President Kasukuwere, for president in 2023, we want to encourage Zimbabweans to maintain and observe the rule of law, which is why we've addressed the issue of the 2 warrants of arrest, which is always being alluded to, and we're saying those are a non-entity in as far as the law is concerned, because they were quashed. The charges were quashed. So he does not need to appear in any court of law to answer. So he's going to subject himself to any legal processes, and he has already done so and succeeded. So what we want to encourage everyone, including our own supporters who are going to vote for President Kasukuwere, is to abide by the laws of Zimbabwe, not to seek to be sensational or to call people to an uprising. What we are calling people to do is, come 23rd of August, can we all go to our polling stations and vote for the independent candidate for President Xavier Kasukuwere?
Now, it's amazing that, as you say that President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa has failed to take this country forward. You say that he has retained the pariah state tag. Now, the definition of pariah state includes and is not limited to extrajudicial killings, extrajudicial arrest, and a lack of respect for human rights. But on the other end, you appear to be defending the said pariah state and saying that people who point out this pariah state status are calling for sanctions and must be dealt with.
I think you did not hear me carefully when I started responding to that question. You talked about the issue of the sanctions. And I did say that as Zimbabweans, we should be able to use our internal processes to address whatever shortcomings may be there, which includes running as a candidate to be elected as president. Because you have seen that this government which is in place has got these shortcomings. And you tell the people and you convince the people that if you vote me in, I'm going to rectify whatever issues. We have not seen President Kasukuwere going to seek for sanctions, even as he has been in exile. We have not seen him saying, oh, America, please sanction that government which is in place.
Funny that you say that.
Because at the end of the day, if those sanctions are put in place, when he comes into power, he will still be...
Funny you say that, because just on Sunday, your campaign team released a message that was read out by the chairperson of the campaign, and Walter Mzembe. And he called on the international community. He called on the international community to look at President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa's attempt to rig the election before the election actually happened by bringing out the issues around the so-called warrants of arrest. And he said he actually called on the international community to look at it and intervene.
This is a statement I am very much alive to. It does not call for punitive measures. I did say that where you have found that you cannot find each other as a people, there is a way to engage our regional counterparts, those countries surrounding us, to help us as Zimbabweans find each other.
Contradicting yourself.
No, but that is not to say that, no. If we go back to my earlier response, I said we look at the internal processes available. When those internal processes do not work, we engage with our regional counterparts to help us to find a solution. That does not in any way mean that please sanction my country, because sanctioning is placing punitive measures, and punitive measures will hurt, and they will hurt everybody, especially those in the grassroots, especially those ordinary people on the streets.
Now let's look at what you promised the people. Maybe before we go to what you promised the people of Zimbabwe. Do you believe in this debate around structures help win elections?
I believe that if you're seeking to be elected, you need to know who is standing behind you. And this has to take a kind of scientific approach. You cannot just say everyone is my supporter. You need to kind of also have a way of determining what your support base is, so that you know come election that you're guaranteed of votes.
There's this issue of Sangano Simba Kumasero. You guys don't have cells. You guys don't have structures in the communities. Do you think that this is going to disadvantage your campaign in any way?
We may not have cells, but we have structures. We are building our core teams and working around those to widen the spider net so that we capture as many people as possible. So it's not just a random or haphazard approach. It is structured.
Do you think, or do you not think, that if you win, say you win, you'll be a sitting duck with no MPs?
Not at all. Not at all. The president is standing as an independent candidate. There are many other candidates running for MP standing as independent candidates who have been mobilized around garnering support for the president as an independent candidate. So there is no issue of him being a lame duck president.
So, some have argued that if Kasukuwere wins, Zanu PF MPs will back him. Is that fair? Is that a fair argument?
The argument is that when he wins, because he's the most ideal candidate of all the candidates who are running, the likelihood that MPs from either camp will rally behind him is very, very high.
Nelson Chamisa says that Kasukuwere is Zanu PF, and him running for president shows that Zanu PF is fractured. And when he looks at President Emmerson Mnangagwa and your president, Xavier Kasukuwere, he sees one party. Is that factual?
That is his own political analysis and opinion, which he is entitled to. But as I have said time and again, President Kasukuwere is running as an independent. He's inviting all Zimbabweans across the board, no matter which party you belong to, or even those who do not have any parties that they support. He's inviting them to rally behind him and vote him for president.
Do you think that his past, will not haunt him in this election?
No, I do not believe that he's got any past that will hinder or that may stand as an obstacle to his candidacy. He has come to the people of Zimbabwe. He's laid himself bare and told Zimbabweans about his plans for this great nation of Zimbabwe, how he's going to steer its development, how he's going to take it forward, and most importantly, how he's going to involve the youth who have up to now been sidelined, with people who have been serving in their parties, guarding their positions fiercely. No one wants to let go. Those who have been running, who have been standing as MPs for 20 years, still want to continue. There is no position anyway in those two parties for young people to participate. But we are saying this is your opportunity as youths to participate in something that you can own and something to which no one can lay a claim to say, no, we only want liberation or heroes here, or we only want those who were fighting with us since Morgan Tsvangirai's times. This is something which is being built specifically with the youth in mind, with the first-time voters in mind, with those people who are not aligned to any party in mind, and with also those people belonging to the two parties who are not satisfied with their own parties in mind. We are saying this is a solution to our problems. Come and vote for President Xavier Kasukuwere come 23rd of August 2023.
How much is Nelson Chamisa of the Triple C a threat to your candidate romping to victory?
All candidates are running for one position. They all have their propositions. Our focus is to say to the people of Zimbabwe, ours is the best candidate. We will obviously always highlight the shortcomings of our competitors, but as I have said earlier on, and as I continue to reiterate, we are not enemies. We are just running for one position. We are all competing for one position, and we can do that without hatred, without anger, without mudslinging or name calling. We can do that whilst addressing Zimbabweans at large who are waiting to hear from all candidates what are the propositions, and we are forwarding our propositions. We are advancing our solutions which we are proffering. We are advancing our principles, our policies, our ideologies, and we are saying our candidate is the best because of what he stands for and because of what he's promising for the people of Zimbabwe. We are not going to go around name calling or making it a personal battle between candidates, but we are saying it's a battle of ideas. We are saying let's tell the people of Zimbabwe what we can do for them better than anyone else, and let's tell the people of Zimbabwe why our candidate is better than anyone else. And I think we have released several presses to support President Kasukuwere and to share his vision for the people of Zimbabwe. And we're saying that young people have got a role to play. It's time that they're engaged in key decision-making positions so that they can also advance the voice of the youth, and that each and every generation has got a right to participate in the governance issues of this country.
So some have argued that this election will not be free and fair, and Chapman, Douglas Monzola, and a number of those opposition political elements, including Nelson Chamisa, have accused ZEC of not playing fair. In your view, do you think ZEC is capable of running a free and fair election that gives your candidate a fair chance?
ZEC has to conduct itself in a manner which enables it to abide by the statutes which created it, by the constitution on which it stands. So we need to see a ZEC which is impartial, we need to see a ZEC which is professional. But however, that is not to say that we are claiming that the playing field is going to be level. As you have seen already, unfortunately, a permanent secretary has risen already to threaten a candidate, a presidential candidate, with baseless warrants. So this is an unfortunate use of the law to try and victimize a presidential candidate just a mere few weeks before the polls. So I would encourage ZEC to stand upon the principles in the act which established it and contained in the constitution, and adhere to it to the T, so that we do not have a compromised election.
Amazing. Now, thank you very much, Madam Jackie Sande, the presidential spokesperson of the Save Via Kasukuwere campaign, for joining us here on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation. Me, your host as usual, Dara. But before you leave, Jackie, I will ask you to look at the people of Zimbabwe and speak from the president's heart. So you speak on his behalf, what it is that you want the people of Zimbabwe to know, maybe that I didn't ask you or that I didn't address.
Sifuna ukukhuthazela abantu beZimbabwe ukuthi kababuye bonke ngobuningi babo bavotele uPresident Xavier Kasukuwere. Ubuya lapha ukuthi akhulume ngendaba zentuthuko yelizwe leZimbabwe, lokuhlala kahle lokuphila kahle kwabantu beZimbabwe. So sonke asihambeni mhla ka-23 August siyemvotela. Ukuthi nechishona ngathi novotera itese baSevia Kasukuwere semthungamiriri wenyika yeZimbabwe vachaunza kubudirira nekugara zvakanaka kweumwe neumwe mukati menyika yeZimbabwe. Zimbabwe ndeyedu tose yekuti tifare tigarewo zvakanaka tese kwete vashomaneni. Tatenda.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Jackie Sande, and I'm hoping that as your presidential candidate comes through, you bring him here so that we can hear from the horse's mouth the issues that you said will be best addressed by him.
Indeed.
Amazing. Now this is, and this will always be, the Free Talk with me, your host, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. And here on this, the Free Talk, we allow all voices to be heard. We are an alternative. This is the platform where we let you interact with what and why it should matter. We are Zimbabwean citizens, first and foremost. We are the people of this country. It is our responsibility to change this country to what we want it to be. This is our country, as Jackie says. This is your country too. Be heard, be useful, be a citizen. This is the Free Talk. Until next time, thank you for joining me, your host Dara Blessed Mhlanga, in proud partnership, the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Thank you.